Welcome to Yorkshireman Models. Today we're going to be building my Wildcat. It's a profipack by Eduard. It's scale 148. I've done an unboxing on this video, so I'll put a link up in a bit so that you can click to look at it if you want to see what you get inside it and everything with it. But I'll be using some Mr. Colour, well Mr. Hobby, Mr. Colour paints. This is what it recommends that you want, so we've got as top side and as underside colours here. I do like these Mr. Hobby paints or Mr. Colours thing, but they are really good paints. Very much like Tamiya, but I think they lay down a heck of a lot better than Tamiya ones do. Seem to spray a little bit better as well. But like I say, we'll use them. So we'll crack on with video. Let's hope we can do this kit justice, because it's a beauty. It really is. I use my favourite nippers to cut the parts off and then clean them up after. And you'll have heard me say this a million times if you've watched my videos before, but there's your Tamiya extra thin cement, my favourite one. Works really quickly, that's why I like it so much. All the parts I've cleaned off with sanding stick, you can see at the side there, just to make sure there's no little bits of plastic on from where they've been cut off the actual sprues. All these parts are fitting together absolutely lovely. There's no wondering which way they fit, how they go or anything, because they've all got either locating pins or they fit really nice. Just showing you there where you can see them red parts, it's telling you to cut the details off. This is if you are using the photo etch set, which I'm going to use, so I'm cutting these off. I cut them off and I sand them off as well. Just be very careful if you're doing it like I am with a knife like this. Some people use a little rotary drill to get them off and that, but that's how I did it there with a knife. Bit of Cockpit green on, just so that I've got a base to start for all my detail painting now. I use fine super glue. You can just see the dab of it that's on that red tray, because I always put a bit on it like that, an old plastic lid out like that. It just allows you to put just the right amount of super glue on for each part that you're wanting to fit. But you can see there I'm fitting seat belts, and there's quite a lot of them, parts for it. They are finicky, I will say that, but you don't need a lot of super glue. That's why you just want to do like I do there, or find another method that suits you, where you're happy how you do it. Because I'll be honest with you, going back years ago I used to hate photo etch. For one main reason is I got super glue all over kits. Getting super glue off, I'm telling you now, it's a nightmare. And you can see there I just use a little bit of wire as well, just to dab a bit on, and then I can just put the part on like that. You don't need a lot, it's just something just to put a little tiny bit on so that it can grab the parts. This the dash on it, it's made up of about, I think this is 3 parts there, and then there's another 3 parts on top, and it's like that, it's just part on part on part, and the idea is you're putting some depth into it. These are finicky little bits to get in, but it's all worth it. Oh, I don't think that's better. You can see there how much detail there is in that. It's amazing to what you get if you're just using decals. Bit of interior painting now, just filling in. In all honesty, I don't think you're going to see a lot of this, but it's best to fill it in while you can. And now I'm going to put a bit of colouring, a bit of shadows and stuff like that by using these oil brushes, and you just dab it around in corners like this, down sides of stuff, because I'm using this like a panel line wash. They're not expensive, them oil brushes, but I do find it's a little bit thick, the paint in them, so sometimes I have to thin them down quite a bit, but it does work well. And you've got a ready mixed coloured paint that you want straight away, rather than messing about waiting for it to release its oils after it's linseed and that, like you do if you just get a normal artist oil. But it depends on what you want to do. And you can see here all I'm doing is just brushing it around into it, so it made a nice thing. And now I'm putting a lighter colour one on. This is going to represent dust, dirt, that kind of stuff now. It's, again, just dab it on. Little bits here, there, everywhere. And it's quite surprising now, just one dab in there that's I've dipped into the actual pot. And look at how much I've covered there with that. And then I just brush this around now with a bit of finish, should I say. And just so it makes it look like it's just a bit of dirt, dust, and the rubbish that usually ends up inside cockpits and that over time. Don't know why I'm doing back of that bit there, because you're not going to see it. But that's me. There's a lot of stuff I do on my kits these days and you don't see inside them. And I do wonder why I spend hours doing all these fiddly little parts and everything. And when you put the kit together, there's nothing there, you can't see it. Fitting these sides is tricky, I'll be honest with you. You've got to get them in on each side there. The Revel glue there, that's just because I prefer it for sticking where I've already painted. I find it eats into it better than the Tamiya one does. But you have to put that second piece on there, and it has to fit between them two side ones at the same time as slotting in at the bottom, the front bit. And like I say, it's tricky. This is the undercarriage section where the wheels go on that when they're up, so you're starting to build up this section now before you can fit it all to the fuselage. These are very fine parts, they really are, and they're not easy to fit together. Again, this is not a beginner starter kit, I'll be honest with you. You've got to have had a little bit of modelling experience under your belt before you start building these Eduard kits like these. But it's worth it, it really is. Once you've built a good few kits, try an Eduard kit and you'll find the detail and the actual quality that you get. It's amazing. But it's like that, look at them thin actual rods, railings, whatever you want to call it, they all fit together. And that little bit there has got pinpoints where you've got to get little tiny ones, and like you can see that it ain't easy. You're trying to feed that between all of them, like so. Like I said, it's tricky. It's really tricky, and it's not great when you're getting a bit on and you've got builder's fingers like me. That's first and on, and then you have to just work around it. Nah. You just put one in, glue it, put one in, glue it, and just work around it like that. Again, you can see that one there. Put it into its place. A little dab of glue. And there. That's all over me. And that took me ages, I'm going to be honest. That's why I cut the scene, because I couldn't keep going on with it. There's little tiny points where that sits to, so you're not going to get it wrong. You just sit it into them points and it's spot on. And it's a grey colour, it's telling you to pay the interior section for your undercarriages, so this is the grey I'm using. I just blast it on, to be honest. It's easy enough done. And at the front, that's where obviously your undercarriage sits and all of that, so that needs a bit of it in as well, just in case you can see into it. Again, like I said before, I don't think there's a lot. I'm fitting this to the fuselage now. You can see it fits in absolutely beautiful. That first attempt, that, I thought, I'm gluing this. It's gone straight in. And it's a grey colour, it's telling you to pay the interior section for your undercarriages, so this is the grey I'm using. And it's a grey colour, it's telling you to pay the interior section for your undercarriages, so this is the grey I'm using. I am using the Tamiya extra thin here because I'm wanting it to run around it a little bit. It did glue it fine, I must admit that. This one here, I've used the other one because this one's a little bit different because this is sliding in like this, and if you watch, it fits in absolutely perfectly there. I don't know who designs them and everything like that, but that is brilliant. And now you've got the other side and that one straight on. Look at that. No fiddling, no trying to press it in places where it shouldn't. It's just happily it slid straight together. There's a few bits now that you're just gluing on outside, going around. Not a lot, but there's a few pieces just to add on. That's for weight exhaust, so they both just come out of it. The wings are, there's a few parts to them, and I wasn't sure when I first started gluing them, am I doing this right here? But once I put that piece there, because I thought, it can't be, it's not looking right. But once that one goes on, you suddenly go, oh yeah, it is, it's fine. Because I wasn't sure whether I will gain it the right way around and everything until you actually stick it to, you put them together. But you just let the Tamiya extra thin just go into it. The radiator section or wherever it is for the actual where the propeller is. That's got little locating pins, so you get that right as well. It's just inside, you can see a little nub of a plastic thing sticks out. I'm looking at it a bit confused because I'm wondering why it's not sitting together right. And then there you go. Realised I weren't actually putting it into the right spot. When you do, it does sit together nice. And that sits in here. And I were a bit, when I'm putting this in here, thinking, crikey, that's wobbly as hell. And it's not until you put the next piece on you realise, can you see how it's wobbling about? Put your next piece on though, and it's perfect. In all honesty, this one. That goes over it. There's your exhaust at the bottom. And again, Tamiya extra thin in there, just to make sure it sticks well. I wasn't sure how much of a grip it were getting, but it's been fine, so it must be good. And I had to get me super glue cleaner out as well, because I spilt a little bit on the plastic itself and it took it straight off, but honestly, a real pain that was. Wings, as you saw there, they just slide straight onto it. Absolutely perfect. That arm, or whatever you want to call it, that piece that's sticking out that helps hold it in place, brilliant. I didn't have any filling to do on any wings. You can just see how there's a little groove for it to slot in, and when it does, it fits perfectly. Just a bit of glue down, just hold it against it, just to make sure it gets a nice seal. The tail section's in a few pieces, a bit tight to start, but it did go in alright in end, so it probably helps actually, it being a bit tight, helps stop you breaking them off so easy. Then again, my favourite is breaking pieces off. And that were a bit strange, it being in one part as a long length like that, but it fits in lovely, so. And the last part going on at rear. I will say one thing, if you're building it, and I didn't do this because this is hindsight after, you might be better off keeping that part off and putting the decal on that yourself first and then fitting it to it, because it's a bit of a pain trying to get that decal in at the back. It's a bit tight in place. It makes it a bit awkward, that's all. And Mr. Surface of 1500 primer. My favourite. Put it down, thin layers. I never blast it on. It dries really quickly as well, but I do like to leave it for a good few hours before I start overpainting it. I have used quite a few different primers in my time, all the way from the Tamiya rattle cans, I've used Vallejos, AKs, I've used nearly every one, and every time I get I think, oh, it's a good, I always end up coming back to this one, the Mr. Surfacer 1500. I don't know why, I just think it lays down the best, and it's very hardy. The paint I'm putting on now, this is the underside one, is the Mr. Colour 325. This is just a grey, but this is the colour that they state that you want for it in the instructions. It is a nice paint. Mr. Colour paints, you'll find, are very hardy paints because they're not proper acrylic with it, it's just pure water based. So they do take a good bit of hammer, as I'd call it, for what I do with them, because I'm useless at times catching them and that. What I will say though is that they really do smell. They are a very smelly paint, and yeah, they can stink house out if you're not careful. So whenever I use them, try and have a mask on, and I try and make sure all windows, that kind of thing's open in the room, because I haven't got a proper spray booth, in all honesty. I ain't got the space for it. I don't like that. This is an old shoebox I use to spray in because it's easily chucked out of the way. The paint I'm putting on now is number 367, and again that's Mr. Colour. And this one is blue grey, and be honest with you, it looks absolutely beautiful when it's on. I do have to put a few coats, as you can see. But it is a really, really nice colour paint. There, now I've got a good few coats on, you can see there how nice it is. But again, thin coats, blasted across like that. I'm now going to do a bit of weathering, as you call it, on panels. And to do it, I'm using two different colours of Mr. Colour there. I've got a lighter grey one, so I'm going to put some of that in it to make it look like it's getting a bit older. And I use Mr. Leveling Covering Thinner. What I do is I get dropper bottles and I put, rather than trying to mess with a great massive bottle that you can see there, and I'll just put it into a dropper bottle like that. It makes it a lot easier for getting out the right amount you want. Otherwise you're using a pipette to try and get it out of that great massive bottle, and that can be a nightmare and all. Luckily I've never knocked a full bottle over, but I'll be honest with you, I've knocked enough over on smaller ones where it's made a mess. That's why it's them little dropper bottles now. But that's the past. Just see it's starting to lighten up a bit in between the panels and that. What I do as well is I do put more of the lighter colour in and lighter until eventually, as you can see on there, you get more of a distinction. This is the masking that I did to protect it. I've got Tamiya masking tape on it, but I also use frog tape. It's the delicate surface version. That's the wider stuff there. It's about £6 for a roll of it, but it's like 10 times the amount, if not more than 10 times the amount. It's massive what you get compared to Tamiya, so that's why I use that. Tamiya just for edges, frog tape to get the big areas done. These are the decals that are peelable, and from the start, even before I was putting these on, I was very wary about it, but I'm putting them on into Microsol and just put them on, move them to where you want, and then clean them off with cotton bud. Make sure there's no air bubbles behind and stuff like that. But this is it for peeling. You just rub an edge a little bit till you get a bit of the film up, and when it starts to come up, you can just grab it with tweezers and just gently peel it all away like that. That's all you have to do. And just be careful, because if I have had bad ones, and they do your head in, and if you do get bad ones, they will pull the decal off with you. But I left the decals for over 24 hours. It must have been a day and a half before I got back on it to start work on it, and everyone pulled off fine except for the tail one, which I'll tell you about later. Panel wash here, blast it everywhere, just all over. I wanted to start and get some dirt, some discoloration, try and make it look like it's not in use. It's not a brand new one straight off factory floor. Once it's dried-ish, there's enough of a thingy, bit of tissue paper, and just start and work it off. And it rubs off. The more you work it, the more it'll come off. You can leave loads on if you want it to be an extremely dirty version, or as I'm doing, I'm just doing it as kind of mucky, not too much. These oil brushes again, this is I get a bit more weathering look, like certain areas. Put little tiny drops, and then you can just brush it in like that. And then it looks like dirt's gone on or built up in areas, and it's the wind flows just taking it away to what it looks there. It's time consuming, there's no doubts about it, but you just go around doing this, and it's easy enough done. It passes time. You don't even realise it sometimes. You get doing stuff like this, and before you know it, 2 hours has gone by, and you're thinking, my good God. Shader for the exhaust. This you've got to be really, really careful with. It's a really low pressure you want for spraying this on. And if you look, the airbrush I'm using at the minute has got a little screw part underneath where the cup is. That's where you can cut the air right down, which is really handy. But you just faintly blast it across, and it is only faintly coming out, but it's so easy to get too much. You could, I don't know if you can quite see it, but there it's started to build up and it looks a bit rubbish. So a cotton bud like that, you could just wipe it straight off, because it's an ink, this one, I believe. It's not oil paints or out like that, so they do come off quite well. But when you put enough down like this, it does, I think it has a lovely smoke effect, personally. I'm gonna put the undercarriage in now, and you think, oh crikey, where's that? But they've all got a proper point where they're all sitting, and they do show you on the instructions as well, so you know exactly where it's going. And there, that's it. And you think to yourself, crikey, it's going to be a nightmare this fitting that. It ain't. Tail wheel going in. Again, very easy. I do love it when I'm at this stage, when I'm getting to the point where I'm putting all the small parts in where I've kept off, because if I don't keep them off, I'll break them off. It's the little details that start to come together that I think make the kits. The doors, again, easily fitting. A little bit fiddly for where you're putting it, because it's a little bit awkward. But other than that, that's it. But it's fitted really there. And I had to remember to paint some of that ink on the actual outside at doors as well, otherwise they'd have looked a bit, in my view, a bit silly if they were clean and the rest of it were mucky. Wheels, double glue, that's it. It really is. I never leave my kits as well with wheels down until they've had about 4 or 5 hours to dry, because I always find if I don't, they tend to bend off a bit. This is me masking for the canopies. You do get masking set, I will say that. You've got a full masking set for the lot of it, so, and it does work well. You've seen there, it's beautifully coming off. I can't knock them. I wish more manufacturers gave you masking sets. I mean, you look at that there, brilliant. I have very, very sparingly put a little tiny bit of glue on of that one on there, so that I can glue it to the actual kit. If it were a closed cockpit, I would probably have used Elmer's or just white glue or something similar, because I find if there's no way for the actual fumes to go on that, it kind of fogs canopies if it's enclosed. So I try to make sure that I use it like that for them, just closed canopies. But I'm having it open, so this one sits back. around there. I like to have them open if I can, because it always makes it look like it's better, more in use. But you can see there, it is good. Fitted perfectly then, to be honest. Again, more of the maskings. These are coming off. These are the underside ones. I've already done the other side. You can see there. You can see a little bit actually into the cockpit there. Not a lot. And this one's over, I believe it's a light that lights down so that they can see. Yeah, it come out brilliant, that. It's good masking tape, whatever they use, the sort, so you don't have any paint getting past it really. Machine guns definitely left till near last. I mean, you can see here with these tiny things. I'm using a brush here, and that's Tamiya's thicker glue. It's just a tiny bit thicker than, well, I say tiny, it's quite a bit thicker, but I think it's that bit better than the fin for when you're trying to do something like this. You can just put a little drop on, and it is a little drop, and then you can push the glue in then, because you get the time to mess about a bit. With the fin glue, Tamiya fin, you wouldn't have had time to do that. It would have gone off by the time you got a chance to put it in. Propeller on. There. Oh, I'm quite chuffed with that. I've completed her, and she's took a lot longer than what I liked, but that's mainly because I've been busy with work and that, so it's having time to do it. But she's now done, and that's the main thing. The kit, I'll be honest with you, it's been fantastic. Absolutely beautiful. Probably one of the best kits I've made for a long time. I mean, the details, brilliant, absolutely great. For the price of the kit as well, I don't think you could ever knock it. But we'll start with, I'll spin it around that way. We'll start with Cockpit. And I've got to be careful because there's a lot of fine parts that I've glued on at the end, and I tend to knock bits off like that. But there you go, into that cockpit there. It's hard to see it, and you've seen more on the build itself, but it's lovely in that. It's a cracking bit of detail to what bit you can see when you can see into it like that. But it is really, really nice. As you can see, all panel lines, everything, they're all absolutely beautifully represented with rivets and lot. Absolutely great. I'll turn her over so you can see undercarriage and that. You can see the detail that's, well, I say you see it, but the detail that's in the undercarriage, even in the bay and everything like that. It's really good. We have got a bit of engine detail that you can just see through there, the radiators or whatever it is there, with the propeller. Oh, just put that back on there. Oh, just miss it, that's it. So, as you can see, the detail's fantastic. Decals, they've all gone down great. I will say, when I peeled, because I peeled all the decals but this one, because when I started to peel this one, started to pull off a bit there, the colouring down at the bottom, and I thought, whoa, just no, it's not having it on that. And I think that's because of all these raised rivets that you can see all down that, and I think that's what did it. And I thought, I'm stopping. If I carry on, I'm going to rip that decal to bits. But all the others, as you saw in the video, they've all peeled absolutely beautiful. It does make a massive difference on the kit, because when you look at it, it does look like they were genuinely painted on from the start. The photo etch, yeah, me and photo etch, we seem to have a love-hate relationship. I mean, the very top here in this cockpit front, the canopy, you've got a little mirror. Now that little mirror, I glued it on, and just obviously with super glue, that's what I use for when I'm gluing anything that's photo etch, and I just mistouched it wrong, and straight away it made a mess of the canopy. So what I had to do was get some Tamiya gloss, Is that the one? Oh no, that's the semi-gloss, but it's like that. But it's not the semi, it's the full gloss one. I've got it somewhere knocking about. But I used that and I just painted inside of the canopy a little bit. Just turn it for you and you can see. I think it's a little bit shinier now, that top of that canopy. But I painted it with that and it seems to have brought it back, got it back. Otherwise it looked awful. It were a right mess. But luckily I've got away with it. But there. I hope you've enjoyed this build. I'd be really grateful if you'd subscribe, like, all the usual stuff, the video. Do me a massive favour if you'd subscribe, really would. And if you do, hopefully you'll be around for the next one, see the next build. I'm already cracking on with another. And thanks a lot for watching. Have a good one.